You worthless piece of trash. Get off that stage right now, or I'll have you dragged out like the pathetic failure you are. My father's voice cut through the ballroom like a knife. 300 of Chicago's elites stared in shock as I gripped the microphone with shaking hands. My sister Penelope stood frozen, champagne glass slipping from her fingers. My mother covered her face in horror. But I wasn't backing down. Not this time. Everything you think you know about this family is wrong, I said, my voice cracking but growing stronger. Tonight, that ends. The silence was deafening. These people had just watched my sister inherit our family's $87 million empire. Now they were watching me destroy everything. Phones came out, whispers exploded through the crowd. But let me tell you how the forgotten daughter of the Sutton family became the one holding all the power. If you want to hear how this family drama unfolds, hit that subscribe button right now, because what happens next will blow your mind. Have you ever been the black sheep in your family? Drop a comment and let me know, because I have a feeling you'll relate to what I'm about to tell you. Now let me start from the beginning and show you exactly how I got here. My name is Mira Sutton, and I'm 24 years old. That probably doesn't mean anything to you, but in Chicago's elite circles, the Sutton name opens doors. Well, it opens doors for everyone except me. My father Amos owns Sutton Industries, a tech company worth $87 million. My mother Pamela spends her days planning charity galas and making sure our family looks perfect in the society pages. And my sister Penelope? She's 26, has an MBA from Harvard, and according to everyone who's ever met her, she's absolutely flawless. Then there's me. I'm an art school dropout who works at a coffee shop called Brew and Bean on the north side of Chicago. I live in a tiny studio apartment that's smaller than my family's walk-in closet. My car is a 15-year-old Honda Civic with a dent in the passenger door, and I shop at thrift stores because that's all I can afford. To my family, I'm not just the black sheep, I'm the family embarrassment, the one they hope nobody asks about at dinner parties. The disappointment who couldn't even finish college. I gave up trying to make them proud years ago, but I never stopped wanting them to love me. Growing up as Penelope's sister was like living in the shadow of the sun. From the time we were kids, everything came easy to her. Straight A's in every subject while I struggled to pass basic math. She won debate tournaments and spelling bees while I sat in the back row at school, doodling in my notebooks. I remember being 12 years old and winning second place in a citywide art competition. I was so excited to tell my parents, but when I got home, they were busy celebrating Penelope's acceptance into the advanced placement program. My art certificate ended up forgotten on the kitchen counter, buried under a stack of bills. When I was 16, I had my first real art show at a local gallery. 20 of my paintings were displayed, and the local newspaper even wrote a small article about me. It was the proudest moment of my life, but my parents missed it entirely because they had to drive 3 hours to watch Penelope compete in the state debate championship. She came in 4th place, but they acted like she'd won an Olympic gold medal. The pattern continued through high school. Penelope got into Stanford with a full scholarship. I barely graduated and decided to go to art school, which my father called a waste of money and time. Penelope graduated summa cum laude and went straight to Harvard for her MBA. I dropped out of art school after 2 years because I couldn't afford the tuition and my parents refused to help. Art isn't a real career, Mira, my mother would say whenever I brought it up. When are you going to grow up and do something meaningful with your life? Penelope joined Sutton Industries as a vice president right after Harvard. I started working at the coffee shop. Penelope got invited to every family dinner, every holiday gathering, every important business meeting. I was lucky if I got a text message on my birthday. The only person in my entire family who ever understood me was my grandfather Darius. He passed away 2 years ago, but before he died, he was the one person who saw something in me that nobody else did. He'd come visit me at the coffee shop sometimes, ordering a black coffee and sitting in the corner booth for hours while I worked. Real strength comes from staying kind when the world is cruel, he used to tell me. Your sister has never faced real hardship, Mira. But you have. And look how beautiful your heart still is. I thought he was just being nice. I had no idea he was actually watching everything, taking notes, and making plans that would change my life forever. If this story is hitting close to home, and you want to see how this all plays out, smash that subscribe button because what happens next will blow your mind. But tell me this, do you think family should love you unconditionally? Or do you have to earn their love through achievements? I'm genuinely curious what you think. So let me know in the comments below, because what I'm about to tell you next will make you question everything you thought you knew about family loyalty. The night that changed everything started 3 weeks ago when I got a text from my mother. Not a call, because God forbid she actually speak to me. Just a text that said, Penelope's graduation celebration, Saturday 7 p.m. Try to look presentable. That was it. No, we'd love to have you there. Or, it would mean a lot to the family. Just a reminder that I needed to look presentable, as if I usually showed up to things looking like a homeless person. The party was at our family mansion in Winnetka, the same house I grew up in, but somehow never felt like home. When I pulled up in my beat-up Honda, there were already 50 luxury cars in the circular driveway. Maseratis, BMWs, Mercedes-Benzes, and then my car, looking like it had been dragged behind all of them. I had spent my entire last paycheck from the coffee shop on a dress from TJ Maxx. It was navy blue, simple, and the nicest thing I owned. But the moment I walked through those massive front doors, I knew I looked completely out of place. Chicago's wealthiest people filled our ballroom. Politicians, CEOs, old money families who had been friends with my parents for decades. These were people who owned private jets and summer homes in the Hamptons. And there I was, the family failure, trying to blend into the wallpaper. My mother Pamela took one look at me, and I could see the embarrassment flash across her face. She quickly pulled me aside and whispered, "Couldn't you have done something with your hair? And is that dress from a discount store?" Before I could even answer, the lights dimmed, and my father stepped up to the microphone that had been set up near the grand staircase. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice booming through the room. "Tonight we're not just celebrating Penelope's graduation from Harvard Business School. We're celebrating the future of Sutton Industries and the announcement of our family's succession plan." My stomach dropped. I knew what was coming, but hearing it out loud felt like being punched in the chest. I am proud to announce that Penelope will be inheriting Sutton Industries in its entirety, all $87 million, along with our Tesla Model S, our $13 million mansion, and the family trust fund that will set her up for generations to come. The room erupted in applause. Champagne glasses clinked, people shouted congratulations, and I stood there in my discount dress, watching my entire family legacy get handed to my sister while I didn't even get mentioned. Then Penelope took the microphone. Beautiful, confident, perfect Penelope, in her custom-made designer gown that probably cost more than I made in 6 months. "Thank you all so much," she said, her voice smooth and practiced. "I'm honored to carry on the Sutton family legacy. I know that some people in life choose different paths, and that's their choice. But I've always believed in working hard, setting goals, and achieving excellence." The way she said "different paths" while looking directly at me made it clear she was talking about my failures. My cheeks burned with embarrassment. But then she said something that absolutely destroyed me. "I especially want to thank my parents for never giving up on me. Unlike some people, who shall remain nameless, their unwavering support and belief in my potential made this moment possible." Unlike some people. She might as well have pointed directly at me and said, "Unlike my loser sister, who they've completely given up on." Every single person in that room knew exactly who she was talking about. I could feel their eyes on me, some filled with pity, others with the kind of satisfaction that rich people get when they watch someone else's humiliation. My heart didn't just break in that moment, it shattered into a million pieces. 24 years of feeling invisible, worthless, and unloved all came crashing down on me at once. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I just needed to get out of there before I started crying in front of 300 people. I pushed through the crowd and stumbled out the back doors into our garden, gasping for air and fighting back tears. I found a stone bench behind the rose bushes where nobody could see me and just let myself fall apart. This was it. This was confirmation that I would never matter to my family. I was the throwaway daughter, the mistake, the one they'd rather pretend it didn't exist. I was sitting there sobbing when I heard footsteps on the gravel path. Great. Someone had followed me outside to witness my complete breakdown. Mira Sutton? I looked up to see an elderly man in an expensive charcoal suit walking toward me. He had silver hair, kind eyes, and carried himself with the dignity that comes from old money. I had never seen him before in my life. Yes, I managed to say, wiping my tears and trying to pull myself together. My name is Martin Chase. I was your grandfather Darius's private attorney for 40 years. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a thick manila envelope with my name written on it in my grandfather's distinctive handwriting. Your grandfather left very specific instructions, Martin said, handing me the envelope. Tonight was the night I was supposed to give you this. My hands were shaking as I took the envelope. It was heavy, filled with official-looking documents, and sealed with red wax that bore my grandfather's initials. What is this? I whispered. Martin smiled sadly. The truth, my dear, the truth your grandfather has been protecting for 5 years. I tore open the envelope and pulled out a stack of legal documents. The first page made my heart stop completely. It was a will. My grandfather's real will, dated 5 years ago, just before he got sick. And according to this document, he had left everything, and I mean everything, to me. Not Penelope. Not my parents. Me. The coffee shop girl. The family disappointment. The one they pretended didn't exist. There was also a handwritten letter in my grandfather's shaky penmanship. My dearest Mira, if you're reading this, then my test is complete. I have watched for years how your family treats you, and I have seen your response. Penelope may have their ambition, but you have something far more valuable. You have heart. You stayed kind when the world was cruel. You remained humble when others became arrogant. That is why you, and only you, deserve to carry on our family's true legacy. I looked up at Martin, my mouth hanging open in shock. He knew, Martin said quietly. He watched how they treated you at every family gathering, every holiday, every celebration. This was his test. He wanted to see who his family really was before he decided who deserved his life's work. If you want to see what happens when I walk back into that party with these documents, you absolutely need to subscribe right now because what comes next is going to be absolutely insane. But before we get there, I have to ask. If you found out your family had been lying to you your entire life, would you expose them publicly or handle it privately? Let me know in the comments because what I decided to do shocked everyone, including myself. I stared at those documents for what felt like forever, reading the same words over and over again. This couldn't be real. There had to be some mistake. Martin, I whispered, are you absolutely sure this is legitimate? He reached into his briefcase and pulled out more papers. Copies of the will with official stamps, witness signatures, and notarizations from 5 years ago. Everything was perfectly legal and binding. Your grandfather was very thorough, Mira. He knew this day would come, and he wanted to make sure there would be no question about his intentions. I could hear the party continuing inside. Laughter, clinking glasses, and then I heard something that made my blood boil. It was Penelope's voice, loud and clear through the open French doors. I just hope Mira finds her way eventually. It's so sad when family members become such disappointments. Maybe now that I'm running things, I can finally get her some real help. More laughter. More agreement from the crowd. They were talking about me like I was some charity case, some broken person who needed fixing. That's when it hit me. For 24 years I had taken their insults, their dismissal, their cruelty, and I had stayed quiet. I had convinced myself that keeping the peace was more important than standing up for myself. But my grandfather's letter changed everything. He had been watching. He had seen how they treated me, and he had chosen me anyway. Not because I was perfect like Penelope, but because I had stayed kind despite their cruelty. They needed to learn that hurting people has consequences. They needed to know that their years of emotional abuse hadn't gone unnoticed. And most importantly, they needed to understand that I wasn't the family failure they thought I was. I stood up from that stone bench with shaking hands, but for the first time in years, I felt strong. Really, truly strong. Martin, is this will legally binding right now? Like, immediately? Yes, my dear. The moment your grandfather passed away 2 years ago, this became his final testament. The will your family has been operating under was actually a decoy he created to test them. I folded the documents carefully and put them back in the envelope. Then I walked back toward those French doors, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst out of my chest. As I stepped back into the ballroom, I looked over at the empty chair where my grandfather used to sit during family gatherings. His photo was still there on the mantel, and I swear I could feel his spirit with me, giving me the courage to do what needed to be done. I walked straight to the microphone, where Penelope was still holding court, telling stories about her bright future running the family empire. "Excuse me," I said, my voice barely audible. Penelope looked annoyed. "Mira, what are you doing? Can't you see I'm speaking?" "I need to borrow this for just a moment." I took the microphone from her hands before she could protest. 300 people turned to stare at me, the family disappointment who never spoke up about anything. "I have something to share with all of you," I said, my voice getting stronger with each word. "Something about the real will of Darius Sutton." The room went completely silent. I could see my father's face turning red with anger, my mother looking like she wanted to disappear, and Penelope's confident smile slowly fading into confusion. I pulled out my grandfather's letter and began to read. "My dearest Mira, if you're reading this, then my test is complete. I have watched for years how your family treats you, and I have seen your response. Penelope may have their ambition, but you have something far more valuable. You have heart. You stayed kind when the world was cruel. You remained humble when others became arrogant. That is why you, and only you, deserve to carry on our family's true legacy." You could have heard a pin drop in that massive ballroom. Then I held up the official will. According to this document, legally notarized 5 years ago, my grandfather Darius Sutton left his entire estate to me. Sutton Industries, the mansion, the trust fund, everything. The will you all witnessed tonight was a decoy. Penelope's face went from confused to absolutely terrified. My father looked like he was about to have a stroke. My mother actually swayed on her feet like she might faint. But the guests? They were pulling out their phones, whispering frantically to each other. This was the kind of family drama that would be talked about in Chicago society circles for years. Martin stood up from the back of the room where he had been quietly watching. "I can confirm that everything Miss Sutton is saying is completely accurate and legally binding." I looked directly at my family as I continued speaking. "Grandfather Darius chose me because I stayed kind when you were cruel. Penelope succeeded because you gave her every advantage, every opportunity, every ounce of love and support. But I survived because I had to be strong. I had to build character from nothing, and that's exactly what grandfather was watching for." Penelope let out a sob and ran from the room, her designer gown trailing behind her. My parents stood frozen in complete shock, unable to process what had just happened. The crowd was in chaos. Phones were recording, people were calling their friends, and the story of the Sutton family's dramatic reversal was already spreading through Chicago's elite social network. 6 months later, my life looked completely different. I was running Sutton Industries, and instead of focusing only on profits, I created programs to support local artists and creative entrepreneurs. The company was actually doing better than ever because I treated our employees like human beings instead of replaceable parts. Penelope and I are slowly rebuilding our relationship. She's learning humility for the first time in her life, and honestly, she's becoming a better person because of it. My parents are struggling with the guilt of how they treated me, but they're trying to make amends. I kept my grandfather's picture in the office, right where I can see it every day. And in the evenings, I paint in my new art studio, something I never thought I'd be able to do again. Here's the thing, I didn't want revenge. I just wanted to matter. I wanted to be seen, to be valued, to be loved for who I was, instead of constantly criticized for who I wasn't. Sometimes life gives you both. If this story inspired you or made you think about your own family relationships, Please subscribe, because I share more incredible true stories like this every week. And hit that notification bell so you never miss when justice is served to people who thought they could get away with treating others badly. But tell me this. Do you think I did the right thing by exposing them publicly, or should I have handled it privately? I genuinely want to know what you would have done in my situation, so let me know in the comments below. Because sometimes the people who underestimate you the most are the ones who end up being the most shocked when you finally show them who you really are.